Folks, in the upper left on Moondance, in the blue on the Terran map, he's the Terran player. It's Future.
And the Twitch poll may say that he has a 0% chance of winning, but we all know in our heart of hearts that there is a shot. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Red Zerg from LTK. It's Reaper.
I'd like to point out that the Twitch bet is not quite hopeless. I think they're about 10 Dirty Esports dollars betting for Reaper, which is a great value bet if you're just you're betting on, if you're going for the value bets rather than who you think is actually going to win. Yeah. If there are 10 points versus almost 11K, it makes a lot of sense. Go for the value bet. I mean, I don't think it's going to work out. I think Reaper is the massive underdog here, but I mean, what's an investment of 50 channel points when it will return like 100-fold?
Exactly. And I don't know who made that bet, but all I can say is I bet you they have a silky smooth voice and they're very, very handsome, obviously. But we are seeing Reaper here just go for
today.
Well, he's not casting today. He's just watching.
Clearly.
Yeah, he made that bet. But we are seeing Reaper here do a standard opening, and I kind of said this earlier. Obviously Reaper's the underdog, but the biggest cheese that Reaper could do is Reaper could make everything look like he's preparing for a 2-base all-in, and then Reaper takes like 3 ninja bases across the map, just absolutely devastates his opponent by maxing out at 8 minutes.
I'll be on the lookout for that. I think it's going to be very hard to spot, but I'll do my best here, Titan. Do what I can. As the Reaper meets his brother in the Zerg side of the map, and great grenade, but not going to be able to chase the drone down to start. And Future's actually being so aggressive with this. Is not where the Reaper shows up. That is not how the meta goes. But Future trying to take advantage of maybe a assumed mismatch, or not exactly sure what. But tries to dive in the main base, doesn't get much of anything. And interestingly enough, we see no creep tumors. We see double inject on both hatcheries from the start, which does give you a lot more stuff. But generally, you want to get that creep spreading out on the map. I guess the reasoning here is because this is Moondance, and if you're planning on taking the 3rd base back, you don't really need creep quite as soon to connect your bases.
Yeah. Reaper's going to be pushed back here by the Queens. Finally, creep tumor is going to be placed down. So we're going to see that that start to be pushed out as Future just getting, a bunker here at the front, just making sure that he's going to be plenty safe in case any lings do come across the map. At the same time, just a regular 1-1-1. It does look like he's probably going to swap over the starport onto the factory. Oh, never mind. A tank first is actually pretty interesting. Usually in TVZ especially, you're not going to see that tank unless, of course, that your opponent is cheesy and you want to be able to have that splash damage against an all-in that might come in.
Yeah, here's the thing. This is a 3-minute lair that has been scouted out by Futures. The Reaper's still alive, and it's gotta die now. There we go. But it is 3-minute lair. There's a Bailey nest on the way. 2 additional gases. Okay, so this feels like 2-base muta. This feels like we're gonna see 2-base muta out of Reaper, which makes a lot of sense with how much dead air space you have in Moondance. Maybe, but also Moondance has a 31-second rush distance. It's very quick across the map. Ballsy play from Reaper. I'm curious to see how it's going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it's good, and you can see that Future is kind of preparing for. I mean, this feels like, a TVT opening almost. Aside from the early game where you get the tanks out early and you start preparing, but I definitely do think this is an interesting opening from Future. It's very, very safe. You're not going to have a lot of pushing power early on in this game because you got this safe tank. Obviously, it does mean that Future will be able to set up for a 3-base timing attack, getting up the 2 engineering base, stim, additional barracks. But that gives plenty of time for Reaper to just do what he wants on his side of the map. Get up this spire. We see here, this Overlord. Overseer survives.
Hey, we talked about this, Titan, in the last series when we were talking about Neeb, where if you're the heavy favorite, as Future still is, he hasn't had the best DreamHack run, but still the heavy favorite here. Just play safe. Assume that you'll be able to play the macro game that you need to play. I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. His 3rd base It's in the pocket base, so it's not quite as efficient as you might otherwise like it to be, but benefits of a Terran. Once you mine it out, you can get float elsewhere. It's fine. And with 1-1 on the way, Stim on the way, there's this timing. Now as the mutas do pop out from Reaper where he can get something done. But we already have missile turrets down, and Reaper didn't have a ton of gas to begin with. He actually made 6 safety banes. I don't know why. I don't know what he saw that made him want to do that, but only 5 mutas popping out. That's enough to one-shot an SCV, but you want more. You want to go up to 8-9 to start.
Yeah, it's definitely not the commitment that I think we were expecting out of Reaper here. It's very light on that commitment, in fact, as the Viking here trying to do some harassment. Gets a drone and then is going to be knocked down by the Queen. Good pull there by Reaper. He's going to be able to keep that alive as right now both players sitting at 53 workers. The Future has established this pocket expansion. Of course, you're really looking at, I mean, it's essentially 2/3 of base, or maybe more than that. There's plenty of mineral patches, though missile turret will deter the Beetalisks. And yeah, as you were saying, it's just kind of Future's ready. He's just playing this completely safe.
Oh, the unfortunate thing about that first glimpse of the mutas is the fact that that 5th muta, right, that allows you to one-shot SCVs, it was stuck on a rally at the 3rd base with the Overlords. It was not with the Reaper or the muta flock of Reaper, so couldn't even find. He didn't get that much, but he really didn't have a potential to get that much, but he probably could have had 1 or 2 more SCVs from that if he had had his entire flock together. And now with Stim done, with 1-1 just about done, it's a lot less possible. But the mutas will find a tank, and that tank is just a little bit exposed. So nice job there, Reaper, finding something, finding what you can. But if I am Reaper here, I'm very worried about the move out from Future that'll be happening really any moment now.
Yeah, 2-2 started up, +1 vehicle plating as well. And yeah, this is just going to be a big tank push from Future. I mean, he already has 35 Marines out on the map, 3 tanks. And I mean, from this position as the Terran, you're completely comfortable to just keep macroing up. You're going up to 5 barracks. You're pretty much at essentially a full 3-base saturation. The great part about Moondance for Terrans is that with this pocket expansion, of course, you're working with 2 less mineral patches and 1 less gas geyser, but you really don't actually need a 6th gas as Terran. Usually you should have enough gas off 5 geysers to get everything that you would want and more.
Well, that on top of the fact that with mules, you kind of make the base feel like a normal base. Eventually, of course, you mine it out faster, and that's a problem, but at least as you're able to drop mules on top of it, you minimize the disadvantage of lacking those 2 mineral patches. Future sieges up his tanks, but is playing as aggressively with his Marines, but playing pretty defensively with the tank count, getting ready for the Lynx to roll in, and that's where he says he's going to take his fight. But Reaper, for now, he's going to stay on creep. He does not want to take this engagement before his upgrades are done, but it is a gap. It is a long time until these upgrades from Reaper will be ready. In fact, by the time they're done, 2-2 will just be about done for Future as well. So there's not a big window here where Reaper will be able to fight equal on tech.
Yeah, I mean, Future, he's just inching up. He's knocking back the creep. He wants to take this step by step because he knows how dangerous it can be if the Zerg is able to find a collapse onto their opponent. And mechs are pushed back, and 5 tanks here for Future. I mean, Reaper has matched him in the army supply, though. 20 Mutalisks out for Reaper, 72 lanes, only 18 Banelings, but still that's plenty to deal with what Future has. But his tank position, just barely in range there of the hatchery now, and it looks like we're gonna get the trigger pull. Look at this round coming through for Reaper as the Banelings roll on in the tanks, unable to focus fire on most of them. The Marines, though, are still alive. They're going to try and pull this back. Focus fire down. The Banelings, only 3 left. His Future almost gets rid of all of them, but the final connection is enough to thin out the numbers so that Future will not be able to continue to push this, and Reaper keeps all 20 of his Mutalisks alive.
I mean, that's still a great fight from Future. Remember, you talk about how Reaper has equalized the army supply from Future. In fact, when he took that fight, he was ahead in army supply. That's because he's only on 65 workers. This is not the big, beefy Zerg economy Mutiling Bane setup that we are used to seeing. He is funding this defense with his own Future. So now as Future returns once again, his army supply, he's got 2-2 now versus the 1-1 of Reaper. Doesn't even have his +2 upgrades even started. He's got Carapace kind of, but it's a ways off. No attack upgrades. Yes, Reaper did force Future back the first time, but he's not going to be able to do it the second time. The 4th base falls, and now it's a 3-base Terran versus a 3-base Zerg. The Terran has better upgrades. The Terran has better economy. Yes, it's a 7-worker lead, but mules are a powerful thing. And Reaper, he needs to find damage on the other side. He needs to find he needs to give Future a reason to go back home, but I'm not sure what that reason would be.
I mean, 20 mutalisks is a pretty good reason. I think Reaper is now wanting to try and maybe get that threatening out on the map. You know, he moves away from the scan, makes sure that Future doesn't have vision on the mutas, and that means that Future is just going to back on up. He's going to play it safe. He doesn't want to keep committing in when those mutas could just dive on into his base. The 2-2 is finally started up for the Zerg, but it's so far behind that of the Terran, and especially with Mutaling Bane. You know, the Ling Bane composition ideally should not be this far behind in upgrades, because when it does take fights, you know, these fights, especially if Future had started to split his units up, start to do multi-pronged attack, but even just front on, you need to be on those even upgrades so you can trade at least, you know, at least decently well. But right now, these Marines are just going to fight so much better.
And one thing we got to point out here from Future, he could have his 3-3 started for quite a while now, so he's letting Reaper back into the timing advantage into this game. And now Lynx go forward. Great shots from the tanks, and it's just a meat grind here. The Banelings are so far behind everything that they cannot take the fight. Target fire there from the tanks as well. Yes, the mutas survive, but there's nothing on the ground. Nothing really can test this just bulk, this massive amount of Marines. 2-2 is not even going to complete. It will get canceled, at least the Carapace for now. Third base is broken. Or I guess this was the fourth base. Another base does get broken. The Banelings, as they morph, get targeted right on down. And yes, they get decent connections on the Marines, but it does not matter. Future, he's up double the army supply of Reaper at this point, and mutas are good, Titan. They're not this good.
Yeah, no, the 2-2 Marines just absolutely shred through everything in these Baneling morphs. They're going to get canceled. Future, he's going to grab game number 1 off the back of just some solid macro, and he says, no, Reaper, you cannot beat me in a straight-up game. Where is your craziness?
I mean, 2-base muta is kind of crazy. It's so it's decently far out of the meta. Granted,
that is fair.
Granted, with how Terrans have been greedier more and more, with how 3 CC play has been happening more and more, it makes sense that you would move into maybe a two-base Spire, right? That kind of counters that somewhat well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I definitely feel like Reaper, he had a shot there with that first engagement. He was up so much army supply. And had he been able to find another angle, you know, he came from 2, but had he been able to swing at least some of his units down, there's a third angle there. He could have come in for a full surround. Might have been a lot more convincing of a cleanup. But just with how it was, Future was powering off those 8 barracks, 3 bases, and not really much shot for Reaper to get back into it after that. As of course, Reaper, I mean, is already eliminated. This is essentially playing for the spoils, for spoiler, and to get that prize money that you get for winning a series. So we'll see if he can do it. But right now, Future looking good, and for Future, you know, this is a pretty important one to win. Obviously, we expect him to, but it will tie him with Patty Mac is the most important part of this. It will get him close to Nina and Disc, who are both sitting at 3 and 2. And mind you, Nina is playing against Estrella, currently undefeated. That is a PvP that Nina could most likely lose. And so then you'll have 3 players at 3 and 3, and then it comes down to Disc and Scarlet. And if Scarlet beats Disc, then suddenly that middle of the pack, those last 2 qualifying spots in 3rd and 4th are completely open for the last day of matches. And that last day, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy because you'll have Future versus Patty Mac, and then you'll have Nina versus Pure Legacy and Disc versus Reaper. And so you're really then looking at that Future versus Patty Mac.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that Future Patty Mac series. Patty Mac's been looking so good, but only some of the time. Right? Like, he goes and he beats Scarlet, and then he gets absolutely destroyed by Disc. And then he goes today and plays pretty well. Granted, it's against Pure Legacy, and that is expected. But even still, it seems like it's a tale of 2 Patty Macs. And I'm, as someone who is kind of cheering for him right now, because if you take down Scarlet, it feels like you should advance into the playoffs. I'm hoping we get a good Patty Mac tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we get good Patty Mac, that's going to come down to tiebreakers, and it's going to come down to map score. And that's always exciting. You know, it's always so intense to see. You do the math and you figure out this person needs to win this series by this many games. They need to get a 2-0, or they need to get a 2-1. And that's really what that may come down to, especially if Nina and Disc both lose. If one of them wins, then it's down to a 3-way pull for 4th. But yeah, It's gonna be interesting as we finally got our lobby on up here. There's a little bit of a break, but Cosmic Sapphire is going to be the venue for game number 2. Future, I mean, solid macro. I don't know if Reaper wants to repeat that and maybe not play the two base muta, go into something a bit more standard. But even with that, Future just looked so good.
So I guess the only question I ask myself as we move into this map is, when does Reaper take the gold and when does he take the rich gas base? Does he take those bases? Because Cosmic, the rich gas base is not something that gets talked about enough, because the gold is technically probably worth a little bit more. And then the rich gas base is so far away that it kind of is this late game setup where it matters far, far less. But you never know. I don't know. If it's a weird map, it's a weird build, and maybe it might become useful. I don't know. But we're going to find out, folks, because we're here. In the bottom right, folks, in the ready's up 1, just with relentless macro. It's Future.
Top left-hand corner. What is he going to do in this game? That is the real question. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Reaper.
I hear you hesitating, trying to make sure that, see what he's actually going to do with that 16th drone, but nothing too crazy. Sorry to burst your bubble here, Titan.
Yeah, no, just going to be the expansion. I was keeping an eye there on the mini-map, and no gold base, no rich Vespene. Of course, Cosmic Sapphire. If you're looking up to the top right-hand corner, you do have those 2 rich Vespene bases right next to each other, so they're just that much harder to take. And then, of course, in the bottom left, the gold. It is not, it's regular. It's only 6 mineral patches. It's not a full base like you would get on Stargazers, but still enough to definitely swing a game in your favor.
Yeah, pour one out for Pride of Altaris. The most broken full gold base that we've seen in quite a while.
Yes.
Although, actually, in fairness to Pride, after some meta changes happened, actually, we got some pretty cool games. Particularly some pretty cool TVZs, but not quite enough, and it was righteously yeeted from the map pool, because that's the technical term, along with every other map that we had been playing on for the last year. So very happy about that, and also excited to see what maps we're going to get for Katowice, because we do know we get a new map pool after Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, that is, that's always exciting. Getting that new map pool for the World Championships. Just, it adds in that extra factor of players also figuring out the maps over the course of, that tournament, and really seeing what strategies kind of develop as Future. Just going to be poking in here with the Reaper, getting some Reaper on Reaper violence, some just horrible war crimes being committed here, but overall, nothing is going to end up falling. And behind this, it's just a standard build from Future. It's the expand factory is also coming down. We'll see if he goes up with a tank again. I think the tank worked out well, but it looks like this might just be Hellions on Cosmic Sapphire. It's a bit of a bigger map, so the Hellions just give you a bit more agency on the Zerg side of it.
We're going to see something like 2-base muta again. At least we're seeing 2-base layer once again. Knows the gas count. I just got to wait for these queens to complete as Reaper stays 3 out of 3 on gas in the main. And also, importantly, does not really prioritize spreading his creep towards the 3rd base, because he has no plans on taking a 3rd base all that quickly. So I wonder if Future's going to read into that. It's a small thing. We do see players sometimes just take the inject anyways, not often. But also, I'm curious what Reaper... I don't think Reaper goes 2-base Spire 2 games in a row. And with the Baneling Nest on the way, it actually might be.
Does he?
Yeah, right? He's lacking gases on the natural for the moment. You take those a little bit later. But the Baneling Nest tells us that he is trying to play a little bit more defensively on this as the drone goes in. Actually, Hellions are going to dive in with the Reaper as well. Not too much damage to start. Good pull on the drones, actually. 2 workers will fall, but 3 workers fall. That's kind of minimal for how little Reaper had. And there we go. Double gas goes down. So, 2-base Spire once again.
Yeah, Overlord is going to go down. Tanks in production here. And yeah, it's a repeat here of the build from Reaper, which does have me worried for for Reaper, because again, you played this build. Of course, it's a different map here, Cosmic Sapphire. There's a lot of flank angles on this map. There's a lot of different pathways that you can take to try and find surrounds. So, you know, maybe this ends up working out better when you look for that engage on the eventual 3-base push that Future is going to go for. But, you know, still, this you're just running back the same build, and if Future reads this well and just plays safe, I don't see this getting any damage done.
Technically, this build that Future has gone for, though, is a best option, best case scenario for Reaper. Yeah, he lost a couple workers, but it's not as disastrous as it could be. And Future's gone for 3 CC play. It's not third command center as like your after you get the barracks type of like really quick 233 minute third CC, but it's still quick enough that it does slow down stim, it slows down marine production, and that is the ideal you're looking for. You want to pin the Terran back on their side of the map with your mutas before they can get active, and then it allows you to expand across the map, take everything, get up to 92, 95 workers, and then it doesn't matter that your upgrades will be behind, because they will be. That's just how that works. Spire, though, almost complete here. Reaper has enough gas banked up for about 8 mutas, needs a little bit more money on the mineral side, but he should be able to have that first flock active on the map really before Future's able to do much of anything.
Yeah. Third base is up. 8 mutas on the way, and this is a bit more in line with I think what we were expecting in game 1, where it's a higher muta count that is going to be able to have a bit more success diving into those mineral lines. Even with the missile turrets up, you can start to one-shot those SCVs. So I think this is a better execution of the build, at least for Reaper, in this second game. And so we'll see if he can find maybe a bit more damage with the mutas when they go across L5, getting grouped up here, knocking down the wall outside of his natural as well. And all this coming through right as Future is taking his third.
Yeah, this is a much cleaner build from Reaper in game number 2. Game number 1, just not quite what he wants. So, mutas will find a tank here. Very nice. Missile turret doing what it can, but missile turrets don't pump damage down range all that quickly, especially when it's the mutas all clustered together like that. So tank falls, that's nice. It does slow down Future's push just a little bit as he does look to hit these really powerful tank pushes. And now the mutas, they're going to swing around a little bit. Stim is done, combat shields are not, 1-1 is not, so a bunch of marines go down. And I'm not saying Reaper's winning this game yet. That is far from a statement, but at least he's starting to get some of the damage that he would like. Even still, the Future feels comfortable enough to be on the map with these marines, and that kind of, at least from a game state, from like a psychological perspective, that's starting to feel like a problem. You want the Terran afraid to be on the map.
Yeah, slowing down there, the building supply depots. Reaper just trying to be as annoying as possible here with these mutalisks, but not wanting to dive into that main base. Marines already there, actually, even to try and to stop that. But the upgrades coming through for Reaper, again, he's going to be behind just by the fact that he's going for the 2-base muta. He used up a lot of that gas that you would normally use for those upgrades very early on, and so when it comes down to this push, it's going to be a lot harder to fight this marine marauder or just this marine tank head on because of that. You see Future even immediately starts up this 2-2, and he's just going to try and keep pushing this advantage.
Okay, mutas, they do turn around. Only 1 falls, still okay. So Reaper here, he wants to take one big fight. He wants to force the Terran back home as Future runs across. So it's going to be 1-1 versus 1-1 is the timing he's looking for. Baneling speed is done. And then we're going to see him hope to just hit a massive swell of drones behind that. Get up to that 90 count. That's the ebb and flow he's looking for. Terran moves in, he swats it aside, gets more workers, gets another base. But we saw what happened in that last game. He kind of swatted the push aside, but not really. And then the second push went and just immediately killed him. Though they're going to find a missile turret. Good repair, though, from the SCVs, and it's really not going to represent all that much.
Oh my God, you're sticking on it.
Yeah, they are. Good micro on the mutas, but Marines will arrive, and the missile turret stays alive. 4 workers go down, but that was not worth it for Reaper whatsoever. He loses 5 mutas for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe one had gone down before, but even then, 4 mutas for that is just not what you're looking for. And now we have this push getting set up. But again, Reaper, this isn't 2 angles. You can set up 2 angles on this map. He needs to try and flank. This is just a very, very linear try and cleanup that he's going for. And the Banelings are just not able to get on top of anything. And Future, I mean, when the Banelings are just rolling straight at you, he focus fires the tanks. He cleans it all up. The Banelings aren't going to be able to find the connections they want. More trying to roll in. They eventually find a connection. but it is not enough as Future is just death pushing this down. The Mutas are going to try and fight here with the drones, but it's not enough. GG. Future is going to claim